Vanakkam again. The year was 1835. The Industrial Revolution was already underway in Europe, and if you were living in the northwest of England, life was changing fast. Newer technologies were being discovered and production systems were changing, while the British Empire was growing ever larger. It was at this point, 100 years before Liverpool gave birth to their four most famous products, that William Stanley Jevons was born. Let's leave Jevons aside for a moment and concentrate on the industrialization part, specifically energy. For the longest part of human history, we essentially got all the energy to run the world from mitochondria. By this I mean from the effort of human and animal labor. Slowly through the march of time, we as a species learned to harness the power of wind and water. Though coal, and by extension fire, was used for heating and cooking, their application in other aspects remained limited. This is what was changing with the Industrial Revolution. Coal could now be used to run machines, move people around the place, and essentially converted to anything, limited only by human imagination and ingenuity. This new resource and its rapid adaptation raised a question among then economists that capitalism today still doesn't seem to think about. What if it runs out? Cartographers and scientists had pretty much mapped out all of England's coal reserves by then and understood that it was limited. Economists rushed to calculate how fast they would run out at the current rate of use and how much industrialization could expand to keep things under control. At this time, they reached an interesting conclusion, and this takes us to the story of two engines. The first engine, and arguably the first invention that we could consider an engine, was created by Thomas Newcomen and was creatively named the Newcomen engine. It effectively converted the energy from burning coal into something mechanical. Given that this was in the era of early industrialization, it had limited uses and was mainly deployed across coal mines across England. The famously sunny weather in England had a habit of routinely flooding coal mines, and while earlier this water had to be drained by hard manual labor, now was replaced by a machine. The second engine in this story was invented by James Watt, and it was called, wait for it, the Watt steam engine. It built on the design of the previous engine but was almost twice as fuel efficient as the Newcomen engine. This efficiency was what the economists then caught on to. They reasoned that with a doubling of efficiency, they would end up using half the amount of coal, and therefore the coal reserves would last twice as long. You can't doubt the logic of the argument. Here is where Jevons comes back into the picture. After we saw him last as an infant in Liverpool, he had done quite well for himself. Having studied economics and logic in London, he had worked in Australia and returned to England as a tutor in a college. While he wasn't theorizing the growing economic order of capitalism, Jevons took up the question of coal and efficiency again in the imaginatively titled paper, The Coal Question. Jevons notes through meticulous research that with the improving efficiency of machines, the rate of coal being used happened to increase rather than decrease. This was attributed to the fact that while the Newcomen engine could only effectively be used for clearing coal mines, the better Watt engine could be used for a range of other purposes. It was cheaper to run and hence had a large number of people wanting to use it. With this data, Jevons reasoned that making something more efficient will tend to increase the use rather than decrease, in a paradox creatively called, you guessed it, Jevons Paradox. Now there are some caveats to this. Let me leave the boring example of coal behind and explain with an example everyone will understand, biriyani. The best biryani in the world can be found at Amma Biryani in Vellore, and this is a hill I'm willing to die on. The cost of a plate of chicken biryani here is 140 rupees. For the sake of this example, let's assume that the biryani master at Amma's found a way to increase the efficiency of biryani making and could now sell the biryani at 70 rupees, half the price. With all other factors being unchanged, one would expect that the demand for biryani would double. If the demand for biryani increases more than double, we would say that the demand is elastic. And if it doesn't double, it is inelastic. Jevons paradox only occurs when the demand is elastic and the quantity demanded is increased drastically. Let's say, for example, because of the extremely cheap price and spectacular taste, they start getting orders for events. Or it causes students to skip afternoon class and wait in line for 2 hours to have it, as it did in my case. Like we did with coal, let's also consider the examples of cars and fuel efficiency. Assuming you switch to a car with double the fuel efficiency, one would assume that the spending on fuel will be half of that of the old car. The reality, however, is that more often than not, fuel bills don't decrease by half. Maybe because you spend less on fuel, you can now go on longer drives for the fun of it. Maybe someone else who didn't buy a car earlier because of the high fuel price now buys one too. Either way, if Jevons Paradox plays out, the total fuel consumption in a country increases. Another example that comes to mind is something I've seen directly. I live in a place that is primarily agrarian and is prone to drought. Over the years, the community got together and managed the watershed, built check dams, and implemented more efficient irrigation mechanisms like drip irrigation. This led to a situation where water scarcity disappeared, but then led to a new problem. With droughts not a problem anymore, people switched from less water-intensive crops to thirstier cash crops like arecanut. This transition then returned a full circle, causing water scarcity in the region. More efficient water management in this case led to an increased usage of water and not the other way around, just as Jevons reasoned. So how does this matter to us at this stage? We are at a point in time when at least a part of the neoliberal order has acknowledged that climate change is happening and has to be stopped. The solutions that they offer, though, are all centered around the myth of efficiency saving us. More efficient cars, more efficient appliances, and more efficient AI chips, like what we discussed in our previous video about the energy cost of AI. Efficiency is the best solution that capitalism has to offer, and that argument has a Jevons-shaped hole in it. I'm not saying that improvement in efficiency is a bad thing, just that it won't really help us at this point by itself. We need larger structural changes to save us from climate catastrophe, and we won't find them within capitalism. Nandri.